So the Gospel of this Sunday is Luke chapter 24, verses 13 to 35. This is the road to Emmaus, where these two followers of Christ are walking with him without knowing that it's him, and are going to recognize him only once they will break the bread together. So to give you a bit of context, as usual, it's Luke who is talking. It's Luke who is telling us this story in the Gospel. He's, according to the tradition, he is a physician. He's the only Gospel writer who was witness of the Ascension. So everything with him is very focused about the flesh, the incarnation, more than the intellect. So he's taking time to have a look at what is experienced in the flesh, and that doesn't mean he's not symbolic or theological, but he's got an emphasis on the body, and so we've got this example here. With the fact, for instance, that these two disciples are not able to recognize Jesus because, first of all, they didn't live with him because they weren't the direct disciples of him. So this is a practical reason, but also because they are walking in the direction of the sunset. So physically, if you walk in the direction of the sunset, you don't necessarily see correctly who is around you because you're blinded, but also theologically speaking, symbolically speaking, normally a Christian is walking towards the sunrise, and that's not their case. So this might be the reason why they are blinded. Although their heart was burning because Jesus Christ was explaining to them the reason why all these things happened to him through Moses, who represents the law, and through the prophets, they were only able to recognize him through the breaking of the bread. The breaking of the bread is the true incarnation, and because it's very important. It's a very important topic with Christ, whose first thing he wanted to do was to feed the poor. So hence the feeding of the 5,000, the multiplication of the loaves, and the Last Supper. But it raises another question, because these two disciples were in disillusion. They were thinking that Christ was the Messiah, and they generally thought that, and they were convinced about this. But this Messiah was killed by his people, so it was terrible, and it reminds us how much our present life is constantly hit by the reality of death, and death that is irrevocable, and you think that's the end. But this Last Supper that is turned into Eucharist, is something quite amazing, because it's building up a bridge between a Last Supper that happened once, finished, and the new life, the present, and in the middle you've got the cross, who is supposed to be something that is the end, and it's not the end. It's definitely not the end. So it means that each time we are celebrating the Eucharist, not necessarily in the sacramental way, but in the way of sharing bread with people, we are actually stating that the Last Supper is not something that is just historical. This is also that is present and now. It's the cross wasn't the end. The cross, it's the beginning. The cross is the fact that this historical Jesus is not historical anymore. Jesus is present. He is risen, so he is in our lives. So even if today we are experiencing something that is terrible for us, with being jailed in our houses and not able to be with the people we love, there will be an after a moment after. There will be something happening. There will be a day when we will be freed, and we will have the same kind of joy that these people will realize that actually, when they were in disarray, Christ was already with them, was walking with them, and they suddenly realize it. And by the breaking of the bread, their eyes are open, and they now know that He's risen for good. So, brothers and sisters in Christ, we are walking at the moment. It's difficult, but Christ is on our side, is with us, and there's a bright future. So, let's hope in the resurrection. Amen.